Hello and welcome to another episode on Srilingo. Often, when we think of adopting a baby, there are so many things that layer this one decision. We live in a society that prefers that a couple has their own child compared to adopting one. Also, if a couple takes the decision to adopt a baby, then, there are chances that they have to spend a lot of time convincing the other family members as well. Today, I have Nehal Nangia with me. Nehal is the Senior Director and Researcher at the Josh Bersin Company. And I wanted to introduce Nehal on this podcast because Nehal has just adopted a baby girl. I got to know about this through her LinkedIn post, and it was such a beautiful post. So I thought, many of you who may be contemplating this decision could take very important lessons through what Nehal has to share today. So, Nehal, welcome to Srilingo. Thank you for giving me your time. I'm very, very grateful.
Thank you so much for having me here. I'm very happy to be here as well. So ask away. I'd love to answer any questions you have for me.
So, let's start with how does it feel to be a new mom?
Well, some context, it almost feels like being an old mom at this point because I have two children. I have a 4-year-old son who's my biological baby, and then I have a 9-month-old daughter who is my heart baby.
Mhm.
So when your first child is 4 years old, you kind of forget the sleepless nights and the feeding and the diaper changes and the potty training. And then when you suddenly have an infant all over again, so you become an old mom. Oh, we're back at that again. So I feel like an old mom, less than a new mom, because those days that we'd nicely forgotten have come back in our lives. But jokes apart, it feels wonderful. It is a job that doesn't pay you per se, but it is the most rewarding job you will ever have, or it's the most rewarding job I have ever had, at least.
Wow. Just to take on from, where I mentioned that I came across your LinkedIn post, Nehal, when it comes to adopting a child, sometimes what happens is maybe the woman wants to become a mother, and her partner may not be in sync with her decision to adopt. As a woman, as a married woman, how important it is for partners to be on the same page when it comes to adopting a baby.
I'm going to swap a few words in your question.
Okay.
Paraphrasing that, you asked me, is it important for a couple to be on the same page if they want
Yes.
to adopt a baby? I'd swap the question to say, is it important for a couple to be on the same page when having a child? So, irrespective of whether you're having a biological child or an adoptive child, you have to be on the same page. It's unfair on the child to bring a child into this world or into your lives without being fully aligned or committed to it. It's not easy to raise a child. It is very testing at a lot of times. It is very joyful and very rewarding, but it is also challenging. They say, right, it takes a village to raise a child.
Yes.
In today's nuclear setup, working parents, we don't have the luxury of a village, but having a mother and a father to a child are a necessity. If a child comes in a household where, so if you're adopting as a single mom, it's a whole different game. But as a couple adopting a child, the child wants to come into a family where the child feels loved. Again, it doesn't matter for this particular question. It doesn't matter whether the child is your biological child or your adopted child. If you're not ready, don't go down that path. You're doing injustice to a child, and only do it when you're ready, because when you're fully committed to it, when you're on the same page, you will support each other, you will elevate each other, and the child will always know that the child is loved. And no matter what, the child knows that you are there for the child.
Wow, so beautifully put. You just opened up a whole new vertical of thought out there. Being a mother to a biological child and to a heart baby, I don't know how to put this, but I want to ask you that is there a difference? Are you more careful with the heart baby or compared to when your biological child was born? Is there any sort of difference that you see in yourself as a mother with your heart baby compared to when you had your biological child? Any sort of differences that you are discovering, you are unearthing? Maybe you want to be a lot more careful Because see, that decision to bring a child into your life while already having your own child, that itself shows that you have a very, very large heart. So in that large heart of yours, are there new facets that you are discovering with your heart baby?
I'm going to tackle that question in a few different parts.
Yes.
One, uh, this is also my own child.
Yes.
I just chose to bring that child into my life through a different path.
Hmm.
It was very interesting. Just 1 week before my daughter came into my life, the adoption authorities had come home for a final home study. And when, he was looking at the papers, and he just casually made a remark that, you applied for adoption so many years ago, and you put that into the universe, and whoever has to come into your life, because at that time we didn't know who my daughter will be, where she'll be from, how old she'll be, what she'll look like. But he just told me very casually, he said that, this child, whoever your child is going to be, you don't have to worry. This child is born to come into your life, just that this child's path is going to be different because you chose a different path for your second child. So one, this is also my own child. Two, I also wanted to comment on, the large-hearted piece. A lot of people say that, and I understand they come from a well-meaning place, and I know you come from a well-meaning place, but we also need to kind of change the lens on it. I'm not doing this because I have a large heart. I'm doing this because I'm so selfish and so desperate to bring this little beautiful girl into my life who I've always wanted. I wanted to doll up a little girl. I wanted those sloppy kisses. I wanted those hugs and snuggles. So let's look at it from the perspective of doing it for yourself, because it's not good for you, because it's not a sustainable thought, because it's not easy. Again, parenting tests you every now and then. When you go 2 nights a row without sleeping, you will know what I mean, because you'll be ripping your head apart. And at that time, having a large heart is not what counts. It's knowing that I chose this, I did this, this was my decision, I stepped into it, knowing that it will come with challenges, which is true for, again, I'm not speaking from the perspective of an adoptive child's challenges. The challenges are different, but every child has their own challenges and their own rewards and gifts and blessings as they grow up. So the second part of it was also knowing that your child through adoption is not your charity case. Like, there's a lot of different ways to do charity
Love
if you
that.
want to
I
do
love
that.
how you put
It's
that.
not it's not good for you, and it's not good for your child's self-esteem, that if you think of it because you did it because it's a noble cause, or it's a good thing to do, or
Hmm.
because you're large hearted. No, I did this for myself. I'm very selfish. I absolutely only wanted a baby girl the second time around. I love my son to bits, but I really wanted to also have a daughter, so I did this for me. It is important to acknowledge it that way, because also there are so many people waiting in the queue for adoption.
Hmm.
That child could have been somebody else's child, but you were so desperate to bring that child home. So it's not about being large hearted, but it's about knowing that this is my child, I did it for me, and I love the child to bits.
Because, honestly, Nehal, when I approached you for this podcast, I knew that this is the topic that I would like to discuss with you. But I have very limited knowledge about this because I've never experienced this. I have friends who have experienced this, but then, you've broken two very important myths here. When I called you large hearted, like you said, like me, most of society looks at adoption as a charity cause. You just broke that myth and you said, no, it is for me. Because if I think of this as charity, then in the long run, this is not a good mindset to have for my child as well. So I think that's a very, very important point that you made, because that changes the thought process we have as a society towards adoption completely. I mean, all these parents who are in queue to have their own baby, only they know how fulfilling their life will be when that child comes into their life. Now, for family, extended family, friends, relatives, all of that, they can look at it anyway. But then I think, I don't know, I've never heard this before. For the first time ever, somebody who's adopted a child has told me that I am not large hearted. This is not a matter of being large hearted and kind and, charity driven. This is because I wanted my child. That, and I found this process, the best process to have her in my life. Uh, so wonderful. I'm always going to carry this thought and pass this on, to people I meet. How was the adoptive process, Nehal? There's so many people, like you said, who may want to take this route to have a heart baby. How difficult was it? What were the challenges? Sometimes did it tire you? Sometimes did it make you anxious? I just want to understand, how was this process of adopting a child?
It's a yes to all of those questions that you bucketed in. Did
Hmm,
I feel anxious at many times? Of course I did.
hmm,
I love to again and again draw the parallel to my biological baby
hmm,
because it's not a comparison. I say very intently that this is drawing a parallel because it doesn't matter whether you're a biological mom or an adoptive mom, the experience of having a child or bringing a child into your life will come with anxiety, will come with stress, will come with being tired. Was I tired when I was, you know, pregnant with my baby? Yes. Was I tired when I was waiting for my daughter Arya to come into my life? Yes. Was I anxious when my son was coming into my life? Oh, totally. Like, I used to pray every night that, I just hope he's happy, he's healthy. And he was born, he's a Gen Z baby, like born peak COVID, when it was the curfew and the times when you needed legal permit to go out, and I had to go alone to deliver him. Like that was the peak,
hmm,
the Delta wave when everything was shut down. So yes, I was anxious then. I was anxious now. The anxieties are different. In terms of the other part of your question about the process, yes, it's a very long process. Um, but what was the experience? I think when you go in prepared with what to expect, uh, it's easier to deal with it. So it's basically about educating myself. If I say, okay, because you hear this in the news a lot of time, right? Like somebody saw an abandoned baby and 10 people came forward, I will take this baby home. No, I'm sorry, that's not how that works. There's a whole legal system because every time, and if it helps to give you that context, every time a child is found or abandoned or surrendered, the child goes to the child welfare department. There is
okay.
an FIR that is lodged. The first course of action is to try and reunite the child with their biological family,
Hmm,
because the search for roots is always going to be there in the child. I know that it's going to be there in my child also, and we'll deal with it. We'll cross that bridge when we get there. So yeah, I think it's just about educating yourself and knowing that this is what it takes. If I expect to get a child tomorrow and I realize, oh wow, it's not going to be tomorrow or next month or next week, and it's not a ready-made baby that I go and, just go shop for. That is what we hear from a lot of people who don't know how the system works.
hmm,
They think it's a shortcut, but it's really not. You need to educate yourself, you need to prepare yourself. And it's the same thing, frankly, when I was expecting my biological baby, people used to say, you should talk to the baby. And then I did that for the first 1 or 2 months of being pregnant. And for the third month, I was like, how long does this thing take? Like, science has progressed so much and it still takes 9 months to get this baby into this world. Like, what's with science? Like, why are we still so backwards? Like, this is one thing that we could have fixed in like 500 years.
hmm,
So, the same way with adoption, that is the time it takes. There are certain processes, there are certain systems, and there are particular reasons why. Of course, there are so many people waiting in the queue, there are so many kids that are there in adoption homes, but not all of them are legally free for adoption. So the
hmm,
process takes time. If you go in knowing that this is what it takes, you will be able to better deal with it. Also, if you really want something, you will know that you want to wait for it. It is worth the wait. You can also, use the time to get ready in the 9 months that a woman has when the biological baby is coming. There's so much that goes in, right? You read books, you take care of your health, you set up your house, you organize the baby's wardrobe. And there's a lot of that you can also do when preparing to bring your adoptive baby into your life. And we did that. We built a very large community of adoptive parents. Like we connected with so many different people who have adoptive babies, because when my baby grows up, I don't want my baby to feel that she's alone, like, she's the only adopted child. Like, I don't want her to feel different. I want her to know that, this is such a normal thing. Like, there are bio babies and there are heart babies. And look, I have so many heart babies who are my friends. My brother has so many bio babies. We have each other. It's just normal. So we spent the wait time. So it was not tiring for us. There were moments where you just wanted it to happen. There were moments when there was a lot of anxiety, but then we knew this is what it takes. And we used the time nicely. When my daughter was 2 3 months away from coming, we also I gifted myself a baby moon. I knew that it's going to be hard with two children, claiming my freedom again or independence again for many many years to come. So I did all the things that I wanted to do, just that not in a stretch of 9 months but over a span of 3 plus years.
You mentioned search for roots. You'll cross the bridge when you come to it. Would you make the first approach or wait for your child to get curious to ask you those questions?
What kinds of questions?
I mean, like, you said, you have a big community of moms now who have heart babies and who have biological kids. So you want your child to grow up thinking that, okay, my brother is this kind of baby and that kind of baby, and it's no big deal. I have many like me and he has many like him as well. So search for roots because that's curiosity. And as we grow older, I mean, when we were teens, we had certain kinds of curiosity. Here, this could be one of the things that she will probably want to know. So would you make that first approach to sit her down and make her understand that this is a very very normal setup. There is nothing you're not alone in this journey. There is you're not different from the rest of the kids, not different from your brother surely, and not different from anybody else as well. Would you take your time slowly as she grows up to put that into perspective, or how would you do it? Would you wait for her to broach those questions?
I get your question. We're talking about two related but two different things here.
Hmm.
One is knowing your reality that you're adopted.
Hmm.
The other one is knowing your roots. On,
Hmm.
okay, now that I'm adopted, the next step of curiosity, okay, who is my biological family or what are my roots in? Uh, the first part of it, knowing your reality, when do we sit her down and talk it out? Again, let me flip the question. When did I sit my son down and tell him, you know what, you came out of my stomach? No, right? It's
Hmm.
just a very normal conversation to say that, oh, you were so naughty when you were in my tummy. It's just a normal conversation. We have those conversations at home all the time because we want to normalize that conversation. I don't want it to be one fine day where breaking news, sit down, we want to tell you, you didn't
Okay.
come out of my stomach, and you
Hmm.
are, we adopted you, and
Hmm.
things like that. My child will always know growing up just how there was no moment of breaking it to my child that my child came out, like my son, that my son came out of my body. There will be no aha moment of breaking it to my daughter that you came to us through adoption. It is just the conversations we have all the time. It's just her reality, and if we don't accept it or if we brush it under the carpet, how will my child accept it? Because this is going to be her reality for her entire life. uh, we talk about it in terms of the stories we tell our children. So we always talk about Krishna stories. So Vasudeva had to put Krishna in a basket, flow him down a river to protect Krishna, and then Yashoda Maya found him, and then Krishna is loved by everyone.
Hmm.
Uh, a friend of mine recently gifted us a set of stories. It's called the Gopi Diaries. So it's by Sudha Murthy, the Gopi Diaries. It's a lovely set of illustrated books. I was reading it to my son, and it's about this puppy who's talking about, so it's the puppy's diary, and the puppy is saying that when they adopted me and brought me home, I was very scared. And I'm reading this story to my son, and he tells me, Mama, did they do a bad thing because the puppy is scared? And then I told him, I said, when we brought Aru home, you remember how scared she was? Did we do a bad thing? And he says, no. And I told him, look how happy she is now. And he's like, yes. So it's just normalizing the conversation and teaching everyone around you that this is our truth and we will live with it. That is one part of it. The other part of it, yes, this is always my truth, but we will reach a stage of curiosity where we would want to know, okay, this is my truth, but who are my biological parents. So all the literature, so the 3 years of 3+ years of prepping while we were waiting, uh, you do talk to other people, you read, there's literature around it that any child at some age will have that curiosity or search for roots, and also the need to deal with the grief of loss and abandonment. It might hit them. In all likelihood, it will hit them someday. But someday they will have that grief or abandonment hitting them when they're able to understand that, okay, so, this is my family and my family loves them, but there was also someone who abandoned me or, surrendered me, or whatever the child's history is or unique circumstances. So, or maybe the parents passed away. A lot of kids came into the adoption system during COVID when, parents passed away or things like that. So there are a lot of different circumstances through which kids come into the adoption system. That curiosity of searching for your roots or dealing with, grief or getting closure, it's all a part of it. Uh, that will come from the child. When the child wants to know, we will always be there to have that conversation. We will always be there to acknowledge that I am so sorry that this happened, but it happened because we were meant to get lucky and have you in our lives, and they did that to protect you, or that is how the universe wanted to make sure that you were, that was best for you. But we will be there to answer those questions when the child is ready to deal with that curiosity. We will never shut it down, because I don't know, there was something like, whatever you suppress explodes or something like that. So we're going to always have that open dialogue. Also, the system as of today, which I think is phenomenal, the system does not allow you to have a closed adoption. So you have to have an open adoption, in the sense that you are supposed to disclose to your child when they're ready to know that they're adopted. And once they're 18, if they want to find out about their roots, they can. And the system also gives them the information, but when they're old enough to know what it is and deal with what it is. So long answer to two parts of your question. When will my child know that they were adopted? Always. Just how my biological son will always know that he's my bio baby, my adopted daughter will always know that she's my adopted baby. But she will know that she's not loved any different or any less from, my other child.
This podcast has become like, somebody who's so illiterate, me, who's so illiterate about this entire process of adoption versus you. You've broken so many myths, Nehal. First, when I asked you that, are you extra careful because, the baby is a hard baby, you said, oh, it's the same thing actually. Then you said that I asked you, were you more anxious? You said I was anxious during that 9 months gestation period. Here there was a different kind of anxiety, but there was anxiety. I asked you, were you tired? And you said I was tired then also. And I was tired here. The context of being tired could be different, but yes, I was anxious and I was tired. And when I asked you that, when will you tell your child? You said, I have never had to sit my biological son down and tell him that you came out of my stomach. So why should I make it like an aha moment in my household that, oh, you were adopted? I think just by the virtue of, making these statements, you are breaking so many myths and so many taboos surrounding this entire process. Give or take, India is on a very small scale, we are cosmopolitan. By and large, it's still a very rural, rudimentary setup, even in its approach. So these kind of things, I mean, if these are such small things, but such impactful things. I have never heard somebody say these things to me. So that itself, I think this was the purpose of wanting to do. Honestly, I didn't realize the seriousness of what I would learn from you today before I actually spoke to you. One word of could be advice, could be just a lesson to people who want to adopt but have to convince so many people around them. uh, to take that step. There are many people who are in tier 2, tier 3 India who probably want a hard baby to because they want a baby. There should be no other reason. I want this for whatever. You just wanted a baby girl in your life, right? And you waited for that moment. So can you give that one word of advice, something thoughtful that they can take home or find courage in?
I can just say that, you know, I know everybody's circumstances are different. Um, I met so many adoptive families. I've heard so many adoption stories. I've, seen so many different circumstances. Yes, there are very, very few people who do it out of choice. A lot of people sadly do it as a last resort, but I'm glad they still do it because, it's mostly people who've, had several miscarriages or, a lot of prodding for failed IVFs and, then saying that, okay, let's not abuse our body anymore. Let's adopt a child. The need is still the same, like they are desperate to have a child, but the circumstances are different. Of course, when you've gone through all those circumstances, probably the convincing is maybe easier because the family sees. I personally know of so many people where the husbands have said that, okay, don't do this to your body anymore, like it's I uh, so after my LinkedIn post, so that one, to to my surprise, that went viral actually. So that had like 200,000 impressions. That had some like 3,000 plus reactions. So I did not know it would spiral like that. But a lot of people got in touch with me after that, and so many people shared so many things. And this one woman called me up and she said that I lost my baby for the fourth time yesterday. I had a miscarriage, and my husband just says, like, I can't see you go through this, over and over again, so let's just adopt a baby. So maybe in those circumstances, convincing is different. When you're doing it by choice or when you're physically fit to, produce a child, people may question the choice on, why not have your own? Because I was asked that question all the time, like, why not have your own? Like, why, like, are you lazy to have your own child? Like, all sorts of random questions. But whatever be the circumstances, my 2 cents here is conviction has to come from within you. The society, the world, the people around you, family, extended family, know that your child is always going to be your responsibility. If I have to raise my child, I choose. Just how it is my body, my choice, it is also my life, my child, my choice. So conviction has to come from within. And if you are truly wholeheartedly, strongly convinced that this is the right thing to do for you, it will really not matter what the rest of the world thinks. Because now that you've brought up that question, we never even attempted to convince anyone. My husband and I were clear ki ye to karna hai. And it was just about, so it was never about convincing anyone, it was about change management. So we found the right time to start prepping my son. Now, my son is now 4. He was, just a little over 3. That's very little. Now, when his friends have siblings, they see their mothers, growing in their tummies and then everything. So they get 9 months to
Hmm.
prepare.
Hmm.
It's unfair to suddenly drop a bomb on my son and say, hey, ta-da, you have a sibling. So we also wanted to prepare him. So it started from, telling him in very early stages that, so when he outgrew his crib, we told him that the crib stays, the cot stays, because your baby sister is going to sleep in this, and, she's going to be Aru. And, we were also manifesting that she's going to love you a lot, and she's going to be so sweet, and she's going to look just like you. And so we were doing all of that. So there was change management that started at home, educating my child and preparing him. And he would go and tell random people in the park that, so he asked me once, he says, Mama, but where is Aru? Like after a few months, he had that curiosity, but where is she? Like, is she inside your tummy? I said, no, baby, you came from my tummy, she'll come from my heart. A few days later, he goes and tells someone random in the park, do you know there's a baby inside my mama's heart? So, those kinds of things. But my his nanny who took him to the park, he comes and tells me, he's going and saying such things to people. Should I tell him not to talk about it? And I was like, why? Like, do you stop a child from talking when they're
Yeah,
expecting a biological sibling? So that change management, also the fact that he was spilling the beans here and there, which was welcome. I'm good with that, because when you're pregnant, people know that the baby is coming. When you're
correct,
not pregnant,
correct.
people don't know. And a lot of well-meaning people can sometimes ask distasteful questions on, things like, "Isko kahan se utha ke liya?" Or "Whose child is this?" They're not badly intended questions, but they can be distasteful in a particular context. So it wasn't about convincing, it was about change management to make the transition smooth for my child, starting with educating my older son and then slowly finding the right time to tell other people that we're thinking about it. And when we were just about 3 months away from our referral coming in, we got everyone in the family together and we called them over for lunch, and we announced it to them that we're expecting a baby girl, and she's going to be here in April, and that's how it was.
I'm a big believer in karma, Nehal. So I think baby Aru has really good karma from her past life, that no matter the circumstances that happened initially at the start of her birth, she found a beautiful mom, a beautiful family, a beautiful sibling, a beautiful dad. And that's what matters at the end of the day. She has come, she
You
was
won't
born
believe
to
it,
belong to
Smita.
you guys. She was born to belong to you guys. These things that don't happen by
That time
fluke. This is all destiny. It doesn't
they
happen by
don't.
fluke.
It's uncanny how my daughter at 9 months looks exactly how my son looked at 9 months. Like when I put those pictures side by side, nobody can say that they're not biological siblings. My son looks like me, and my daughter looks exactly like her father. Like, it's the universe has a way of just creating that uncanny surreal
Absolutely.
experience for you. The thing is, I do believe that she was born to be in our lives and in our
Yes.
family,
Yes.
but rather than feeling that she got lucky or she had good karma, I just feel that, I swear
It
to
is
God,
your good
every time I
karma
look
too.
at her,
It is your good karma
yeah, every
too.
time I look at her, I just feel, oh my God, how did we get so lucky? Like every time I look at her, and it kind of makes my heart heavy, because uh, I can't imagine how difficult it must have been for her biological mother to let go of her, what circumstances she may have been in. I try and say a silent prayer for her to give her peace and give her strength and give her reassurance that her baby is loved, and, loved to every bit of my blood and soul. But I just look at my child every day, and it's that sense of over fulfillment. Like your heart is so full that you didn't even know that that was an experience or a feeling that could be experienced. But yeah, I think we really got lucky. Every day I look at her, I just can't believe that,
Manifested this. You manifest.
yeah, like it just, the universe made it come true for us.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for giving me your time, Nehal. This was a very, very educational, eye opener sort of podcast, because I came in not knowing much, or maybe how generally society looks at adoption. You opened up so many facets, so many beautiful facets. If these are changes that we can bring about in our hearts, you know, we will look at this entire thing of having a heart baby so differently, as we should, like we should. To the last end of this podcast, you said, she's not lucky, I'm lucky. I mean, just sums up the entire podcast. Thank you so much for giving me your time. I'm truly, truly grateful. God bless you, baby Aru, and the entire family.
Thank you so much. I loved having this heart to heart conversation. Thank you for having me here.
Thank you. Thank you.